Hello, everyone, and welcome to this HU Career Center webinar featuring Lisa Belvis. I'm Nathaniel Janik, the Career Services Coordinator at HU, and I'll be your host for today's webinar titled Networking in Person and Online. A few housekeeping issues. If you have any questions during the presentation today, please type them into the question box in the right-hand side control panel, and we will answer as many as we can at the conclusion of the presentation. There's also a few handouts for today's webinar. You can access those handouts by clicking on the Handouts tab on the GoToWebinar control panel and then clicking on the document to download it. And you can download these documents at any time during the webinar. And finally, the link to the online recording of this webinar will be sent to all webinar attendees in a follow-up email in a few days. Presenting today's webinar is Lisa Belvis. Lisa has been a freelance technical writer and editor at Belvis Consultants for 25 years. She is the author of Non-Traditional Careers for Chemists, New Formulas for Chemistry Careers, and today she'll be discussing how to prepare yourself for networking, both in person and online. And with that, I'll pass the mic over to Lisa. Take it away.
Oh, okay, thank you, Nathaniel. And thank you for inviting me to speak today, and thank you to everybody who joined up. So hopefully you can hear us and you all can see the slides. We're hoping this will be an interactive presentation, so as he said, please do type in your questions as you go and we will try to answer them. So we're going to talk about networking, and before we get started, we're going to kind of take a little baseline and find out, what do people think networking actually is? So if you could take a minute and type into the question box, what do you think networking is? What are you supposed to be doing when you're networking? You know, why are you here today? What would you like us to tell you about networking and what that is? Okay, and so I will hope that some people will type some things in. So we'll kind of get a baseline of where people start, and we will know where to go from there. Because a lot of people, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about networking. A lot of different people think different things. Okay, and I'm hoping...
we've got a couple of questions, or well, answers coming in.
Okay.
So we got meeting new people, seeing if you can make an interesting connection with them, making acquaintances, establishing a connection with professionals in your industry, striking up a conversation with someone you don't know, and building a network of professional contacts. So, yeah.
So, excellent. So lots of really good answers. So y'all have a good handle on what networking is. So let's go, of course, when we don't know the answer to anything, we go, come on, there we go. First of all, we have to get our computer to work. So when we don't know the answer to something, we go look it up, right? So if you look in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it actually says that networking is the exchange of information or services among individuals or groups. And they've added a little caveat now. It's specifically the cultivation of productive relationships for employment or business. And that's actually what we're going to talk about today. So networking is not collecting the most number of business cards you can, or having the highest number of connections on LinkedIn or Facebook or AGU Connect. It's about building relationships with other people, and especially paying attention to the people who are in your professional life or in your professional sphere, and may have information that would be of use to you that way at some point in the future, and that you can help in exchange. You see the comment on here from Hal Lancaster, who says that networking remains the #1 cause of job attainment, and that's really true. The #1 way that people find jobs these days is actually through networking and through hearing about things from other people. It's changed a little bit in the, I don't want to say pre-internet, but beginnings of the internet and before the internet and a while ago, it used to be that you needed other people to find out about opportunities. It was hard to find out when a company was hiring. You didn't know where there was an opening. Now, that's not really the hard part. Pretty much every company posts all their openings all over their website. There's all kinds of search engines, databases. It's very easy to find out about posted job openings. It's harder to, first of all, find out about the job openings that are not posted, what we call the hidden job openings. And it's also harder to get through that first step of the application process, to get through the computer and actually get a person to look at your resume. So that's where those networking connections can really come in handy, where you can have somebody who will say, oh, yes, I know you. I will, walk your resume over to the person in HR or to the hiring manager. So you need those network connections that can do that for you and get your resume to somebody that can actually do something about it. Okay, so there's a number of different reasons why you should be networking. We talk a lot about networking in terms of looking for a new job, which is when most people think about it, like, oh my gosh, I just got laid off, now I need to network. But that's really not true. You need to be networking throughout your entire professional career. You need to be always paying attention to your professional relationships, building those up over time, keeping in touch with people that you've been in, that you've worked with or that you've known over the course of your career. You may have a number of short-term goals. You may be looking for, a way to advance your career. So maybe you're specifically looking for a new job, looking for your next opportunity, or maybe you just want to make sure your name is out there in case that dream job opens up and you want to make sure that you hear about it. You may network to advance your science. So you may be perfectly happy in the position that you're in, but you're looking at taking your science or your research in a new direction. And so you want to network and make connections with people who have tools or techniques or know how to do something that might be useful to you. And again, you always want to network to expand your opportunities. The more people you're connected to, the more things you're going to hear about, and the more opportunities you're going to have that you can decide then whether or not to take advantage of. So networking is not really about how many people you know, it's about how many people know you. So it's people, who's going to think of you when something comes up, say, oh yeah, this would be the right thing. I need to contact this person and tell them about it. The other reason to network is that a lot of times you don't know what you don't know about. And so the more people you know, the more people you're connected to, the more people you help out, the more people are going to give you valuable information that you may have had no idea existed and that may be able to help you advance your career professionally. So the more people you know, the better off you're going to be professionally. You are probably networking right now, maybe not this exact minute, but at this point in your career, without even thinking about it. So look at what you do in your professional life, both when you're at work and outside of work. Do you participate in clubs or scientific organizations or different groups? And by that I mean, do you actively participate? So do you volunteer to do things? Do you serve on committees? Do you go to the meetings and talk to people? More than just paying your dues, are you actually an active member of the organization so that you meet other people, so that you work alongside them, so that you develop these relationships with them? Do you go to scientific conferences, both national meetings, like, I don't know, maybe something in New Orleans in December, or smaller regional meetings or more specialized conferences? And when you go to those conferences, do you look for opportunities to talk to new people and meet new people and follow up and build on those relationships? What about people you've worked with in the past? So do you keep in touch with your former professors and classmates and coworkers, collaborators, team members from other places? Do you keep in touch with them on a regular basis and check in on how they're doing or pass along some piece of information you found that they might find useful? Do you look for ways to help other people? Are you always looking for information that others might find useful and passing it along to them? That's actually one of the best ways to network, is by looking for ways that you can help other people. And things that they're interested in, send them things that they'll like. Then it gives you a chance to, again, build that relationship with them, and you become known as a source of useful information. So when they can return the favor, they certainly want to do that. So you can view networking as looking for ways to help other people, so you're building up that karma so that when you need help later on and you have to ask for help, you've got lots of people who are ready and willing to help you with whatever it is you need. Okay? There's a number of different ways that you can network. There's some of them are warm networking, cold networking, and speed networking. So let's look at these a little bit. Warm networking is probably the easiest because that's reaching out to somebody you already know. So, you know, maybe you come to this webinar because like, yeah, I know I need a network, but I don't want to do it. And you say, okay, I'm going to start doing this, so I'm going to go back and reach out to somebody I went to school with that I maybe haven't talked to in a while, and I'm just going to send them an email or send them a text message and say, you know, hey, it's been a while, how you doing? And try to reach back out to somebody that you already know that will recognize you, that you were friendly with, but maybe you haven't connected with in a while, and try to talk to them again. So that's the easiest because you already know the person. You're probably not going to get rejected. The worst thing is they're just going to ignore you. Cold networking is a little bit harder. So that's reaching out to somebody that you don't know. So somebody that you haven't met before, but maybe you see they're doing something that you find really interesting. So maybe you see a presentation coming up at a national conference and you're like, oh my gosh, that person is doing such amazingly interesting work. I would really like to talk to them about that. And so you send them, you know, maybe a LinkedIn connection request, an email. You do some sort of way to try to connect with them and say, hey, I see you're going to be speaking on this topic at this conference. I would love to get together for a cup of coffee, or could we talk before or after? So I could, you know, ask you some questions about this particular topic. And a lot of people find that really hard. Sending the email, it doesn't seem that hard. Talking to people in person or picking up the phone to call somebody that you've never met before is really hard for a lot of people. And we'll talk about some tips and some ways that you can do that and make it easier on yourself. But, you know, again, cold networking is the only way that you're going to expand your network and get to know more people. You're going to have to get to know people that you've never met before. Sometimes there are things set up specifically as networking opportunities. So these could be, sometimes there are actually speed networking sessions set up. Oftentimes these are things like a social hour, a lunch, a lecture where people are going to talk before or after, where it's a group of people come together interested in a common topic. They're together for a very short period of time. So you're going to want to, you know, make connections as quickly as possible, decide which of those people are going to be, you know, interesting and that you want to develop further relationships, and then build on those relationships after the event, but you don't have a lot of time at the actual event. So while it's quick in the moment, if you do some planning ahead of time and you know what you're looking for, you know what types of questions to ask, you know what people you're looking for, you can really take advantage of those quick opportunities. Okay, so some of the best places for these quick speed networking type opportunities are actually at conferences, because you get, everybody is at the conference. The vast majority of people have traveled away from their home, so they're not worried about you know, their family. They're not worried about their day-to-day job. They're there to focus on what's going on at the conference, to focus on the science, the presentations, the meetings, the other people that are actually there. So you sort of got their undivided attention for the time they're actually at the conference. So you want to spend some time planning ahead of time and figure out what you're going to do at the conference and what you want to get out of the conference. And I think, if I have this right, Nathaniel should have a poll about this point. Yes?
Yes, that's correct. So our first poll, what's the most valuable thing you get from attending conferences? Sharing your science, visiting a new city, learning about new developments in your field, or connection? Go ahead and vote your answers in, and I'm going to be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1, and here we have the results. Got 10% say sharing new science, 5% visiting a new city, 40% city connections, and then 45% learning about new developments in your field.
Okay, so most people are there for the science. That's, officially the reason that you're there. There we go. Oh, okay. So that's the official reason why you're going. That's why you're spending the money, is to learn about science and to advance the work that you're doing. And professionally, that is a very important part of it. But as we saw from the numbers, almost as important are the connections that you make at that conference. Because while you may learn at the conference about the current state of the science and where it's going, those connections that you make with other people, if you nurture those connections, that's going to help you throughout your career and learn about science in the long run. So in the longer term of your career, those connections may actually end up being more important than any presentation that you go to. But probably if you tell your boss that you're going to go there because you want to make new friends, they're not going to send you. So you have to be a little bit careful about it. So you want to decide before you go to the conference, what are your goals? And it may be, your short-term goals are learning about the state of the science, presenting probably your own research, getting some practice in doing oral presentations, but also what are your long-term goals for this particular conference? It may be learning about where the field is going in the future, where the opportunities are going to be, where the science is going, and again, building up your professional network so that you will find out about those opportunities in the future. They have these great things with conferences. They actually publish the program well ahead of time. So for the upcoming meeting in December, you should have the program probably sometime mid-October-ish. So that gives you plenty of time to read through it, to look at all the talks that are going to be going on there, all the people who are going to be speaking, all the posters, and really plan where you're going to go, which activities you're going to participate in, which social events you're going to go to, so that you can meet the kinds of people that you want to meet. So you want to sit down with that book well ahead of time and make out a schedule and decide, okay, this is how much time I'm going to spend at technical sessions. This is what I'm going to do in the evening. You certainly want to spend some of your time with, networking with your existing colleagues, so the people that you already know, catching up with people from other places, from back in your history. This is a great opportunity to get together with those people and solidify those relationships. But you also want to set aside some time to meet new people and to add some people to your professional network. So look at some places that will be opportunities for you to do that. So set up your schedule, decide what activities you're going to go to. Depending on how big the meeting is and how spread out, you may want to look not only at the content of the events, but figure out, travel time, getting between places, which things you're going to go to with which person, all these kinds of things ahead of time. So look at all those logistics. And then after the conference, the thing that most people, or a lot of people, don't do is actually follow up. So a few weeks after the conference, you want to be looking at all these people that you connected with, and again, build those relationships. So contact them again. Send them the article that you promised to send them. Follow up and find out if their sick dog got better. Whatever you can do, again, to reestablish that connection, remind them who you are, and continue the conversations that you had while you were at that particular conference. So you really want to treat the whole conference like a giant networking event. You are always on, so you should always be presenting your best professional self. So that means, being dressed appropriately, being polite to everyone. You have no idea who's behind you in line at the coffee shop, in the hotel lobby, so you need to be friendly and personable to everyone. Okay? So you want to think about, when I'm going to this meeting or attending this networking event, or, just in general, what are my specific career goals at this point in my career? What am I trying to do? So if I'm trying to find a job, if I'm, say, in a postdoc that's coming to an end, or I'm, getting to the end of my education and I know I'm going to have to find a new job, that's your number one priority. So in that case, you would want to look at the program for the conference, or look at upcoming events in your city, look at specific companies, look at specific fields, look at recruiters, look at people who are senior, who are very well connected, who may be able to refer you to other people. Try to find these types of things and places that you can go, and activities where you'll be put in contact with these people, or reasons to reach out to these kinds of people. So if you know that you're looking for a job, for example, and you want to talk to as many companies or organizations as possible, going to an exposition can be great, because you've got lots of companies on display there, so you can go talk to all kinds of different organizations. Look for places that recruiters hang out. Look for industry-sponsored events that would have lots of industrial type people, if that's the field that you want to move into. Maybe you're happy in your job, you're secure, you're going to stay there for a while, you like the science that you're doing, the research that you're doing, but you want to look at maybe taking it to the next level, so you want to enhance the actual work that you're doing. So in that case, your target is going to be a little bit different. You're going to be looking to network with senior scientists, so people who've been around for a long time, who may have expertise in areas that you're just starting to move into. You may want to start looking at related fields that are on the periphery of what you do, but that might also be interesting to move into, so you can talk to people in those fields and see what kind of information they have. You want to seek out people who might be mentors, so people who might know more than you, who might be able to give you advice from their experience and their perspective. And also find colleagues, peers, people who are in a similar situation to you, but maybe at a different institution, so they can provide perspective. These can be great people to have in your network, so you can call them up and say, this is what's going on at my organization. Is this reasonable? Do all organizations act like this, or is there something strange going on here, and how should I react to this? So looking for people who can help you enhance your career from all different areas. And again, looking for people, if you want to improve the specific science, look for people with that specific expertise. See people who are giving talks on these topics, and then go to those presentations and talk to not only the presenter, but talk to the other people in the audience who are also interested in that topic, and see what they have to say. Okay, so I've talked a lot about, finding out how to meet, who you want to meet, what kinds of people, and then I keep saying just go and talk to them. And for a lot of people, that is the really hard part, is walking up to a perfect stranger and starting to talk to them. There's a stereotype that all scientists are introverts. That's not really true. Some scientists are introverts, some are extroverts. Networking is a time where you really have to be more extroverted. You have to go out and talk to other people. And sometimes introverts who are forcing themselves to do this actually end up being better, because they are really good listeners. All they have to do is get the conversation started, and introverts can really listen to what somebody else says, which makes them feel really important. So one of the big rules of networking is you want to ask people questions about themselves and then let them talk. Really listen to what they say. One of my favorite quotes is that listening is not waiting to talk. You want to really listen to what the other person says and then figure out how you're going to respond to that. And obviously answer their questions, but make sure you're spending as much time listening as you are talking. You should have your elevator speech prepared ahead of time, and maybe a couple of different versions depending on what the situation is. So when somebody asks you that, tell me about yourself question, or why are you here, or who are you, you've got that real short 2-3 sentence answer that tells them a little bit about yourself and maybe gives them some hooks that they can either ask you a question or come back with something about themselves so you can get that conversation started. If you really don't like going to these things, by yourself, you can always go with a friend. So have somebody go with you. But then again, you don't want to spend the whole time talking to your friend. Part of the point is to be talking to new people. So go to the event with your friend, but then split up and you each go talk to different people. You should always have business cards with you, so you've got your contact information on a card. So at the end of a conversation with someone, you can thank them for their time, tell them how great it was talking to them, and give them one of your business cards and maybe say, if you remember the name of that company or if you see that article that you were talking about it, please, feel free to send it to me. Here's my contact information. Most often, if you hand them a card, they're going to return the favor and give you back one of their cards. And you can then use that to follow up on the conversation later on because you have that information. So, learning to go up and talk to people, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It is very difficult for a lot of people at the beginning, but you can try putting yourself in their place. If you were standing alone at one of these social events and somebody came up to talk to you, how grateful would you be? And you would just be thrilled that somebody came up and started a conversation with you. So put yourself in their place and maybe look for that person who's looking for somebody to talk to. Talk to them for a few minutes. At worst, you're going to lose 5 or 10 minutes of your life and go, oh my gosh, I'm never going to talk to that person again. At best, you're going to meet somebody who's really going to be valuable and help you, advance your career or help you in some other way. One awkward conversation is not going to be the end of your career. So even if it doesn't go well, you've only lost, like I said, a few minutes of your life. You can also prepare ahead of time by having some interesting things to talk about. Keeping up on sports, current events, what's going on in the world. Again, politics, religion maybe not be such a good thing to talk about, but there's almost always something interesting coming up. Right now, everybody's talking about the eclipse, so that could be a cool thing to talk about. Where are you going to go to see the eclipse? What are you going to do? So pay attention to current events so you've got interesting, non-confrontational things to talk about during these brief conversations. As I said, at the end of the conversation, you want to make sure to follow up, to continue to build on that relationship. You don't want to be somebody that they only hear from when you need something. So as soon as you're out of eyesight, pull out your pen, write a few notes on the back of the card. This is where I met this person. This is what we talked about. Oh, and they mentioned that they have a pet duck or whatever odd, interesting thing they said. Jot it down on their business card and then keep track of that information later on so you'll remember who this person is. And when you talk to them later on, you can ask them about that, and they'll be so impressed that you remembered who they were. You can write them a note if you feel so inclined. You can still send things through postal mail and send handwritten notes. People love that if it's somebody who was really helpful. You can send them a quick email to follow up on the conversation. You can send them a LinkedIn request or an AGU Connect request, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So anything to build that relationship and kind of move up the ladder of intimacy and continue developing that relationship. You don't want to always be the person who's asking for something. So, if you can get information from them, that's great, but you want to try to look for things that you can give as well. So it's a relationship, and at the beginning it's a lot like a negotiation. You want to make sure that you're giving as much as you're taking. So look for ways that you can help them that may or may not be professionally related. If you're going to send them a note after the event, this is a sample note. Dear so-and-so, it was great meeting you at the recent meeting. I enjoyed our talk. A little comment about, I hope you found the restaurant that you were looking for. So the person reading this is like, gosh, she really remembers who I was and what I was doing and what I was looking for. And then a little reminder that, hey, you said you were going to look for this article, and if you find it and send it to me, that would be great. So again, it's personal. It's trying to continue that connection. And especially if you're sending a request to connect on some sort of social media platform, so on LinkedIn or on AGU Connect, you always want to customize those like this to remind the person who you are, because we all get so many of the generic connection requests that most of us just delete those without thinking about it. So always put the little personal touch in there. It just takes a couple of minutes, but it really will pay off. Oops. Okay. So let's talk a second. We've talked a lot about networking in person, where you're going to be, at events, you're going to be talking to people at a conference or a meeting. You can do some of this online as well. It's not quite, you don't get to know somebody as well online as you do in person, but you can talk to a lot more people this way. So we're going to do I think we're doing a hand-raising poll now, if I remember, Nathan, about how many people are actually on LinkedIn and how they use it.
Yeah, that's correct. So everybody, go ahead and just raise your hand if you use LinkedIn. I'm going to take a look to see how many people are raising. And it looks like they're starting to trickle in now. It looks like about a third of the folks that are joining us today have a LinkedIn account.
Oh, that makes me sad. Okay, so LinkedIn is really, it's one of the places that you need to be these days on social media. LinkedIn is purely professional, so there's no pictures of what you ate for breakfast, there's no pictures of your cat. It is all about you as a professional. And when organizations are looking to hire, that is one of the first places that they go. So if you're not there, you are invisible to them. Also, a lot of people, again, when they're looking to meet people at conferences, they will go look at your LinkedIn profile to find out something about you and to see if you're worth having a relationship with, having a professional relationship with, I should say. So you want to make sure that your profile on LinkedIn is filled out as completely as possible. So you've got everything about your professional life on there. You want to make sure that you have a nice picture on there, so it's usually just a headshot. You don't have to pay somebody to take it, but don't do one where you're, cut out of some other picture and you can see somebody's hand on your shoulder or something like that. You want a nice headshot that looks professional. You want to make your summary of yourself, be brief so somebody gets a main sense of what you are. From that, you can include a little bit of personal information on there to, again, kind of round out your profile. So you can include a little bit about your hobbies. You can have a fun banner image, put a little bit of personalization in there so it's not completely sterile. We just talked earlier about, personalizing your connection invitations. So for the 2/3 of you that were not on LinkedIn yet, you will get your profile filled out as completely as possible. And then you're going to start sending out requests for people to join your network, and you want to make sure that those are all personalized. And then again, you want to make sure that you update your LinkedIn profile on a regular basis. It's not static. Your professional life changes, your interests change, you get awards, you get degrees, and so you need to make sure that you're continuing to update your LinkedIn profile so it actually reflects where you are now and where you want to be now and where you want to go. Okay. And was there a second part to the poll, Nathaniel, or was there not?
Yeah,
okay.
I'm launching it right now.
There you
so
go.
Yeah, how often, for those of you, and feel free to answer even if you don't have a LinkedIn account yet, but how often do you update your LinkedIn profile? The first option, I don't use LinkedIn. Hasn't updated since I created my account. Once every few months, I update my LinkedIn regularly, at least once a week, or only when I'm looking for a job. All right, so I'm going to keep this open for a few more minutes, or not minutes, seconds, and close it in 3, 2, one. And so here we have the results. 50% say that they update it once every few months. 13% each. Only they say that, oh, well, it looks like 13% do update it regularly, at least once a week, and 13% only when they're looking for a job. But unfortunately, 25% either don't have LinkedIn or haven't updated since they first created their account. So hopefully this will provide them with some incentives to take this momentum forward.
Hopefully we've inspired them just a little bit. Okay. There we go. Oh, and it keeps going out of presenter mode. Okay, so hopefully this will inspire them to update. And when I say update, it doesn't necessarily have to be, updating your entire profile. It could be, just updating your status. So you can have a status on LinkedIn just like you do on Facebook, where you might say, I published this paper, or my talk was accepted at this conference, or something like that. So putting that kind of information on there can be helpful as well. But you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your LinkedIn profile and that it's not just sitting there dormant for months and months and months. And again, things like, getting a degree, going to a conference, these are great times to say, hey, I'm going to this conference. I know a lot of people are going to be looking at my LinkedIn profile. Let me take a quick look and make sure that it's presenting the best possible view of me that people can have. Okay, so once you have an amazing LinkedIn profile and it looks wonderful, that's only half the battle. You need to look good when other people look at you, but you also need to be connected to other people. That's a lot of the power of tools like LinkedIn, that you're connected to lots of other people so that you can find them when you need information and ask them things. So start, again, going back, thinking about your professional history. Okay, who are my classmates? Who have I gone to school with? Who have I worked with on other projects? Who did I work with on my internship? Who was at these events or worked on these projects? Take all those people and start sending connection requests to them. There are discussion groups on all of these social media tools, so join discussion groups that are on topics that are of interest to you and contribute. That's a way to start building your reputation online. People are like, hey, that guy's commented several things, and what he says is actually pretty smart. Maybe I should go see his talk at this conference coming up. Look for, relevant information. Look for things that would be of interest to people in your field and post that, and put updates on it. So look for information and things you can do that are going to help other people and get that out there so you become known as a font of useful information. Okay, and I think Nathaniel gets the next one. You're going to talk about AGU Connect?
Yeah. So AGU Connect, if I can once again ask everybody to raise their hand. How many that are attending today have used AGU Connect so far? It's relatively new. We're technically calling it AGU Connect Beta. It's been out for just a few months now, but essentially what it acts as is a networking tool to allow you to communicate via message board with other AGU members. It looks like just a few of you have used it so far, so rather than go to too much of a deep dive where I'm just going over slides, I'm actually going to grab the presenter mode myself and give you an actual view of what it looks like. So here is the AGU Connect home screen. You'll see there's a lot of things up here at the top. You have home, communities, directory, events, and then you can browse things. And then participate here will allow you to post a message or share files, which will go into the library of documents. But today, just to give you guys a sense of what sort of things it can do, I'm going to go into the directory here, and I'm going to add one of my colleagues, Billy Williams, who will actually be doing a webinar next month. and I'm going to try to find him here. And I successfully found him, and I'm going to go ahead and add him to contact. And so Billy's now going to get that invite. It's similar to, any social network that you have, but with AGU Connect, you know that it's going to be AGU members that are actively engaged with the same sorts of sciences that you also are engaged with. And I actually have some homework for everybody after this session is over. I'd like everybody to, if you haven't yet, go into AGU Connect, and I want you to respond to a thread that I'm actually going to create right now. So you get to AGU Connect by going to connect.agu.org. If you already have an AGU profile, you should be able to get in with no problems. If you don't have one, then you might have to create one to initially get in. But what I would like you to do is go ahead and join in, and then I'd like you to search in there. I'm going to post this message in the AGU member community. And let me grab the text that I had already prepared here. So what I would like you to respond to is the following item. Are you attending fall meeting this December? And if so, why are you excited to attend? I'd also like you to answer, what is your science and what are the types of projects that you're interested in? I'd like you to ask the group any question, and then once everybody's gotten in and has started to post some things to this thread, there should be some questions in there. So I'd like you to follow that up by answering somebody else's question. I've already started up the process, so feel free to go in and find this yourself. I put it under networking, in-person, and online post-webinar discussions, so it should be there when you get to the home page. I hope that everybody who's here today will go ahead and do that after the webinar is over. And with that, I'm going to pass this back to Lisa before we start diving into questions.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's a cool tool. A couple things to remember. We were talking about the difference between LinkedIn and AGU Connect. So LinkedIn is everybody, can be people in all kinds of different fields. AGU Connect is just going to be people in your specific field, so it's much more targeted of an audience. So that can be a better place to find people who are specifically interested in your field and have backgrounds much more similar to you. It's also just getting started, so this is your chance to get in on the ground floor, to get in on the beta, and really set the direction of where it goes, because they're going to listen to what the first people say, where they want this tool to go, and what functions and features y'all want. So this is your chance to be an early adopter and kind of set the stage for where the tool goes. AGU Connect also is really set for, science being the primary driving factor there, and the networking is kind of secondary. LinkedIn is the other way around. LinkedIn people go there for networking, and if there's any science, a lot of times that's the byproduct. So it's a little different philosophy between the two tools, and it will be interesting to see, how they evolve over time. But there's certainly no reason that you can't be on both of them, and you probably should be. Okay. And I think with that, you have your assignment and you have your homework, and we've gotten to the end. And so I'm hoping we have some questions now that have come in as we've been talking. And I'm going to
I have the first question here. I am just a student. You mentioned earlier in one of the slides that one of the things you can do to network is help others. So if you're just a student and you're just starting out, how can you actually help people while you're networking?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, don't ever say I'm just a student. Okay, yes, you're a student, but you certainly have valuable skills and information and ideas that you can give to other people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about science. So yeah, if somebody else is in a more senior position, you're probably not going to be able to tell them how to run some piece of equipment, but you might be able to point them to a technical talk that they missed in the program, or a poster that is in a different session that they might not have seen. You may be able to help them with, some more personal need. Maybe you have some hobby in common, or you do some great science outreach demo that it had never occurred to them to go do. So there's, you have to kind of find that common ground, find those common areas of interest where you can share things that will be of value to them. Or you may know somebody else that you can say, oh, well, I know this other person who's also in that field, and maybe you can put them in touch with somebody else and help them build their network that way. So there's lots of things that you can do, to help other people. Not, you can't say, well, I'm just a student, so I don't know anything. You know lots of stuff.
All right, so we have another question here. Do grad school advisors typically look at your LinkedIn profile?
Academia has not been as active on LinkedIn traditionally as industry has been. The academic community is starting to get more aware of LinkedIn. There's other tools as well that the academic community uses that are similar, but I'm starting to see more and more, university professors type that are using LinkedIn, especially because they're starting to see how valuable it is for their students. Because if you're on one of these tools and you're connected to your advisor, and then he's connected to all of his colleagues, all of a sudden you have access to all those colleagues. So we're starting to see an uptick in the number of academicians using things like LinkedIn. I will say if you're applying for a postdoc, for example, your potential advisor is going to look at your profile on LinkedIn to decide whether or not you're somebody that he wants to have as a postdoc in his lab or her lab.
Great. Yeah, and something that I know I always have trouble with. How do you start the conversations when you're at a networking event?
That's the hardest part, is coming up with something to talk about. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be science. So you can always fall back on, hey, the food is good, or, I didn't think there would be so much food here. You can, comment on the food, comment on if it's right after a technical session, you can comment on something that happened at the session. Oh, were you in this session? Didn't you think that last speaker was interesting, or wasn't it funny when the third speaker said something exactly the opposite of the second speaker? A lot of times, at all the conferences, people are going to be wearing name tags. So you can look at their name tag and see where they're from and say, oh, you're from New York. I have friends up there, or, I went to undergrad up there, and comment on either something that's going on up there or your time that you spent in that city. You really want to, look for anything that you have in common with that person and just start the conversation that way and see where it goes.
All right, great. So another question here. How do you handle situations if you don't have a business card?
Well, first of all, you resolve that you will have business cards the next time. You can ask for their business card, and then that really puts the onus on you that, oh, I'm so sorry, I've run out of business cards. I didn't expect to give so many away at this meeting. If you give me your card, I will make sure to send you my contact information before the end of the day. And then it really is up to you, to contact them. If your organization doesn't provide them, which maybe what the question was implying, you can go have them, you can print them yourself. That's not quite as nice as going to a local store and having them printed. And they're not very expensive. A lot of universities, if you're at a university, you can probably use their logo. You may have to ask permission. But you can go ahead and print your own just so you'll have them. I would not write your email address on a little scrap of paper and stick that in your pocket. That does not look very professional.
Fair, yeah. Great. So before we close up here, I just wanted to ask. I know that you kind of already touched upon it, but you have a blog that'll be coming out later this month about preparing for fall meeting networking?
Yeah, so what we're working on is kind of a timeline of this is what you should be doing in advance of the meeting, this is when you should be doing it to prepare to take advantage of those networking opportunities. Like I said, networking is really much more powerful when you do it in person. I'm sure a lot of you have had the experience where you know somebody online for a while and then you meet them in person and you realize they're completely different from what you thought. So networking in person is really important, and you want to take advantage of that. So we're going to try to set up a timeline for, this is what you should be doing, now and a month before the meeting and 2 weeks before the meeting and at the meeting and then after the meeting.
Great. I think that it's probably going to be a really exciting blog, and I think that anybody that's planning on going to fall meeting or maybe Ocean Sciences meeting early 2018 should definitely keep an eye out for it. Well,
and everybody who's coming to the meeting should look for us, and they should see if they can network with us, because we'll both be there.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I know that I'll be at the Career Center, and you will be as well. So you can feel free to check us out if you're there in December.
They can come see us in person.
Yeah. I want to thank you for putting this together, Lisa. It's been great. I hope everybody that's attending has appreciated it. As always, if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to email me afterwards at careers@agu.org. We appreciate your attendance. And don't forget to go into AGU Connect and go ahead and respond to those questions. I'll be looking for your responses. With that, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon.